In February 2024, it will be 10 years of Satya Nadella's leadership of Microsoft. At the heart of Nadella's strategy has been bold acquisitions from the start. Acquiring big-name brands and communities such as GitHub and LinkedIn were not obvious acquisition targets, but Satya has made them work. Not only is he a visionary in terms of where the market is going, he is also aggressive in courting and pursuing targets. And then he can wear competitors and others down in a deal process to get the deal done on terms that work for Microsoft. There has not been another CEO in the tech space over the last decade who has been as ambitious and as resilient as Satya to broadening capabilities in an ever-changing tech landscape. And the results are there to be seen for everyone. In the time he's been in charge, Nadella has been responsible for increasing the market cap of Microsoft nearly 1,000%, from $300 billion in 2014 when he took over from Steve Ballmer to about $2.5 trillion today. But what is Nadella's approach to acquisitions that has made him so successful against his contemporaries, and that has made Microsoft the second most valuable company in the world after Apple? And what are some of the key acquisitions that have changed Microsoft in the last decade? Also, is Nintendo next on Satya's shopping list? Let's dig in. When Satya started his tenure as Microsoft's third ever CEO on 4th February 2014, it wouldn't have been immediately obvious that acquisitions were the way forward for the company. After all, Steve Ballmer, who was the previous CEO, had done a number of deals that had just not worked out. Microsoft, under Ballmer's leadership, acquired Nokia's devices and services business, which is a deal Satya inherited shortly after taking the top job. The company paid more than $7 billion for the company, but by July 2015, Microsoft had to write down the acquisition, and Satya developed his own plan for a more focused phone portfolio, rather than leaning on old technology. Ballmer got mixed results for the acquisition of Skype, which remains a popular service, but is in an extremely competitive market. Quantive was a business in the online advertising space and was acquired by Ballmer for $6 billion. It was a total disaster. Of the $1.2 billion spent on enterprise chat service, Yammer never really paid off in a market that Slack now occupies. Given this dismal M&A track record prior to Satya's appointment as CEO, it is perhaps somewhat surprising to hear that Microsoft has made over 100 acquisitions since Satya took over, which is over twice the run rate of the previous 2 decades. But a different leadership style and a wider appreciation of the pace of change in the tech sector and where consumer attention is concentrating is what has helped Nadella become one of the best deal makers in tech history. When he was appointed CEO, Nadella didn't mention Microsoft's flagship operating system, Windows, at all, perhaps a sign of things to come. Instead, when looking at his focus back then and what he's been up to since, it is clear that Satya was keen to focus efforts in a few specific areas. Cementing the company as a network and cloud computing giant is perhaps unsurprising, given he was promoted into the top role from his position as Microsoft's Executive Vice President of the Cloud and Enterprise Division. But it has been Nadella's approach to acquiring that has helped him transform the fortunes of Microsoft. And his approach is very simple. He previously articulated this as, to me, there are a couple of criteria. First, is this something that Microsoft can add real value to? It has to make sense that Microsoft has some unique contribution that we can make, both because of our technology, our brand, and our go-to-market to the asset. And then, of course, at the end of the day, it has to make financial sense as well. It's not exactly a revolutionary M&A strategy, but it's simple, and it has laid the foundations for Microsoft to compound value and widen its influence and impact. Too many tech companies have acquired based on what seems like a whim, but what has probably been due to fear of missing out on a product or area that is getting a lot of attention at that time. But there's no point in doing that unless the buyer can leverage that tech and integrate it in order to strengthen the overall proposition. Otherwise, what you end up doing is frustrating users of the business you've acquired, confusing your existing users, and perplexing Wall Street, who undermines the stock. The net effect of all of this is reducing overall shareholder value, even if something fits into your zone of interest as an acquirer. Nadella's point around acquisitions needing to make financial sense is an interesting one. Microsoft has spent around $170 billion on acquisitions since Satya took over in 2014, but he's increased the market cap of Microsoft by $2.2 trillion. So clearly, the acquisitions have been additive, especially given growth was pretty flat prior to Nadella's leadership. The fact is that the tech sector is one where acquirers can buy on forward-looking metrics as the technology evolves, as user bases become stickier, and as consumer trends become more defined. So even though prices may seem high at point of acquisition, the good ones subsequently look very cheap very quickly. Two examples to prove the point are Facebook's acquisition of Instagram in 2012 for $1 billion and Google's acquisition of YouTube in 2006 for $1.7 billion. The level of attention and users both platforms now have and the monetization of that dwarfs the prices both giants paid for these platforms back in the day. When he was appointed CEO, Nadella wrote in a memo to employees that the single biggest digital life category, measured in both time and money spent in a mobile-first world, is gaming. And so it's no surprise that Microsoft has acquired a number of gaming businesses over the years. Clearly, the largest of these is Microsoft's recent acquisition of Activision Blizzard for $69 billion, which was recently given regulatory approval worldwide. Owner of Call of Duty and King Games, who are the makers of Candy Crush Saga, there is no other gaming developer that has as much influence and impact as Activision. For example, for the quarter ended 30th of June 2023, overall Activision Blizzard monthly active users were 356 million. The Activision Blizzard deal is the largest deal in tech history, and you can click at the top of the page to see my assessment of that deal. But it has not been the only one. In fact, Nadella's first acquisition was that of Swedish video games company Mojang for $2.5 billion. This may seem a bit random until you realize that Mojang is the company that developed Minecraft, the global phenomenon that has over 114 million active monthly users. What Microsoft paid for here is a loyal and highly engaged community who keep coming back to the game day in, day out. The acquisition of ZeniMax is also indicative of Nadella's focus on gaming. It is the developer of The Elder Scrolls, which has 5 million monthly users, but is only one of a large number of titles that ZeniMax owns. And as gaming enters the cloud era, Microsoft's Azure is ideally positioned to benefit to handle the load. This increasing internal and external demand is what has helped Azure compete aggressively with Amazon's AWS. But Nadella has not been intent on just building around gaming. He acquired LinkedIn, the professionals' social network, for $26 billion in 2016 to enable professionals across all walks of life to interact and to connect. And he also acquired GitHub for $7.5 billion just 2 years later. GitHub has been instrumental in allowing communities of developers to build, collaborate, and share projects openly. No doubt, Microsoft's acquisitions around existing and new communities will continue as it binds societies with its amalgamation of tech and complementary propositions. But Microsoft under Nadella is not looking to make the same mistakes as the Microsoft of old, focusing on data tech. Nadella recognizes the need to look to the future, and he's put some big bets on AI, given the impact it is having and will likely have going forward. To that end, Microsoft's $13 billion investment in OpenAI, which gives it a 49% ownership in a convoluted non-profit, for-profit structure, positions Microsoft at the center of the AI debate, with one of the leaders in that race. And recent shenanigans at OpenAI have demonstrated how Satya was intent on protecting not only Microsoft's investment in OpenAI, but also Microsoft's future that is aligned to OpenAI. And after the recent fallout at OpenAI, Microsoft will be even stronger positioned with regards to OpenAI. In 2021, Microsoft paid nearly $20 billion for Nuance Communications that develops speech recognition AI software. As Satya said after the deal, for us at Microsoft, to bring everything we've done in healthcare over the decades with Nuance, with partners, that's what this deal is all about. In other words, this is Microsoft trying to dominate the provision of AI in the $10 trillion healthcare industry, where Nuance already plays. The application of AI generally, and then more specifically in more regulated markets such as healthcare, will ensure Microsoft is on the right side of growth for the future. So what next for Microsoft then? Clearly, Microsoft under Nadella is not shy of spending money and making a big splash. Comparing it to other big tech, there is a clear difference in the level of M&A activity. And normally here, I'd speculate on what could happen and who Microsoft could buy. But this job has been made easier by unredacted email leaks that were presented recently in court against the FTC. In them, Microsoft's top gaming executive, Phil Spencer, said in an email that the company was in active M&A negotiations with Warner Bros. Gaming division, and that he had asked Microsoft CEO Nadella and CFO Amy Hood whether he should slow acquisition discussions since the company was simultaneously looking at buying TikTok as well. He was told to continue M&A discussions on all targets, and yes, TikTok is on Microsoft's radar. Perhaps the most surprising was that Microsoft's board of directors was fully supportive of the acquisition of Nintendo, a company that Microsoft tried to buy back in 1999. If that deal happens, it really will change the tech M&A and gaming landscape. But for now, it seems that Satya has written a blank check and is intent on doing more and bigger deals, bringing together communities and expanding further across gaming. You can check out my video on Satya's power play in the recent OpenAI saga that added a cool $63 billion to Microsoft's market cap as he executed a poker move for the ages. Thanks for watching.